Welcome to Uncanny Valley. Well, isn't that great? Sanders is out and Biden is in. And if it weren't a nationwide lockdown, maybe people would be in the streets. But instead, here we are. I did actually wonder how they were going to do the bait and switch with Sanders. And, well, now we know. Some real coincidental shit right there. I mean, if you believe the polls, you need your head checked, especially in light of the people running election security, who are all totally owned. Did you know only 43% voted in the last election? Which means there can only be a maximum of 15 to 20% of Americans who actually support Donald Trump. So even with Hillary playing the quintessential Disney villain, they barely managed to create the illusion of choice and consent. And make no mistake, that is what it is about. It doesn't matter what connections we make or what truths are divulged, as long as they have plausible deniability and access to the halls of power, or rather a monopoly over the halls of power. And where is Sanders? At a time when he should be hammering home the urgent need for universal healthcare, he's at home running a coronavirus response team. Why? Is it because he was a scam all along? Ever notice that all American representatives are either Catholic or Jewish? And even the progressives, like the Squad, just as controlled. Ortiz backing Biden and giving a shout out to John McCain when he died. I could go through every single representative and show how each and every one is connected to the same groups, run by the same architect, the Holy Roman Empire. And don't think most people are asleep either. 70% of the Western populace does not believe mainstream media to be credible. But of course even that works to drive people into the right-wing alternative outlets, where they are fed a series of emotive arguments based on trivial issues like transgenders, immigrants, Muslims, things that have no statistical significance on society, no matter how you cut it, no matter how much misdirection you use. America is a people's democratic republic with a constitution, just like the USSR, China, Iran and North Korea, whose privately run Federal Reserve prints a debt-based fiat currency backed by bullets and bombs, provided by the American military, the largest socialist program on earth. They control interest and exchange rates. They sanction and overthrow any nation that doesn't submit to American hegemony and the free market, all in order to steal resources for the very people enslaving us all. While Republicans argue about globalism and communism, they have zero interest in the fact that endless trillions have been spent lining the pockets of the rich, while Americans creep ever closer to open serfdom under a police state. It is about ensuring the population is constantly off balance, that they are in a position with no leverage or rights, and can't tell where the truth is coming from. I mean, let's be honest. Capitalism has been used as a form of economic apartheid, making sure the elite get rich while the workers are too busy just trying to survive to mount any meaningful resistance. So forget any empty rhetoric about America being a capitalist economy. That's bullshit. The right has in fact played the role of communists, openly sabotaging and undermining their own communities and states, defending the endless lies of the authoritarian elite, using emotional appeals and logical fallacies, which is precisely how Bolshevik and Maoist rhetoric worked. It has been the perfect infiltration from within, which is why whether corona is a hoax or not is irrelevant, because it is the economic impacts that will bring America to its knees. 70% of Americans can't afford a $400 bill without selling personal property. The median income is $13,000 a year. Under Obama, 75% of all new jobs were in the service sector. 2/3 of all new jobs are now temporary in nature, and most of these are in the service sector, where people work for tips because they can't make a living wage. People with zero savings and no way to pay the rent. 50% of Americans have no savings. Less than 10% have enough saved for more than 1 year of retirement. 40% of millennials still live with their parents. What exactly is going to happen to our population in the West if this continues? Medical bills are the leading cause of bankruptcy. There are 4 million homeless, while 20 million empty homes sit vacant. The because property trumps you or I under capitalism. Meanwhile, 90% of the profits from American labour goes to the 0.01%, while if those same profits were divided amongst Americans as they are with shareholders and corporations, every household would get $700,000 a year. Instead, two people working multiple jobs still don't have the same purchasing power as a single income in 1967. And for most American citizens, infrastructure is third world. The bill to even repair infrastructure is $4.5 trillion. Luckily, Trump has earmarked $1 trillion, but you can bet none of it will go where it's needed. 3,000 communities have lead levels in their water worse than Flint, and another 3,000 have above safe levels of radiation. 1/3 of Americans are obese, and another 1/3 has either a mental illness or drug addiction. And then there's food security. America imports 20% of its food, but this 20% makes up the majority of its table produce. Grain and grain-fed beef makes up most of the other 80%. Only at +2 degrees we can't grow grain at scale. 30 to 50% of grain crops this year failed. America also uses grain as a trading commodity, the largest in fact short of oil, which means Americans could face real famine as grain dies off and oil prices plummet. Thanks to Russia and Wahhabi Saudi Arabia, oil is currently around $20 a barrel, which makes all of America's shale and fracking oil uneconomical to produce, which should tell you that this is a coordinated action and that the UK is in the same boat. They import 80% of their food, and it's all run by the same people. Interesting that chronic germaphobe Trump should dismantle the very early warning systems used to detect pandemics in 2018, and only just renewed the Patriot Act before Corona struck us. And also, thanks to Obama repealing posse comitatus, habeas corpus and the Smith-Mundt Act, Trump can use his troops to detain anyone indefinitely without cause and then legally lie about it in the media. He is doing his best to plead ignorance while ensuring the response is inadequate. Meanwhile, in the background, Kushner is cashing in and selling up. The Real News Network did a story 3 weeks ago about record numbers of CEOs who are resigning, and there were reports of the rich chartering the first jet out of America. Meanwhile, on the 13th of February, BlackRock invested $300 million into an Israeli producer of this hydrochloroquine, whose original developers were murdered shortly after donating their intellectual property to the Bill Gates Foundation. Their proprietary drug is being promoted by Musk, who, like Bill Gates and Trump, was a client of Epstein. Interesting too that Gates owns a number of patents for various strains of coronavirus. So how hard would it be to release some proprietary virus that they already know how to treat? Interesting too that so few are even mentioning the Russian connection. We have a literal fire sale going on while the country is laid open for widespread pandemic, which certain parties are waiting in the wings to install even more totalitarian legislation, like Israel, who suddenly launched a platform that tracks Israeli citizens via their cell phones, and don't forget ID 2020, which could well be implemented in a time of famine and incorporated into the coronavirus epidemic. So if I was the one that wanted to transfer economic and industrial power to Israel and the Great Silk Road, this is how I would do it. It could well be D-Day, folks. With the rise of automation and the government that is completely compromised, there is no America on the other side of this. 2% of 330 million is 6.5 million. And UK is currently at a 2% fatality rate. 8% is 24 million. And if the virus mutates into something a little more lethal, what then? It will target the poor, it will target the sick, and it will target minorities, while the rich and those in the club will have the best chance to survive. This whole thing helps ensure anti-Semitism rises to new heights, driving more Jews and their money to Greater Israel as the twin Titanics UK and USA go down. It is one massive final transfer of wealth to the top, and then that wealth will move to Israel. America has no way to ever recover the real resources that have been expended and the trillions spent on the fake war of terror. No amount of labour or exports is going to cover this, all to prepare Israel's neighbours for expansion. So while you argue with bots and trolls posing as Republicans, remember it was all a giant theft, a giant con, done in the same way that it was done in Germany, Russia and the Ottoman Empire before that. It's clear none of this is coincidence. This virus came at the perfect time for a bait and switch with Bernie Sanders. It provides the perfect alibi. And remember, it's not the virus that is the depopulation agenda. It is the fact the American economy has been bled dry for 50 years, and now neither has the resources or the export markets to dig itself out of this hole. Even if the economy does this or that, in real time, hundreds of millions of people are about to find there is no knot at the end of this rope. Of course, they will use it to spur violence. Probably along the lines of communists versus Nazis, with movie titles like Purge and Election Year, Civil War and Endgame are anything to go by. All the more reason to roll out tanks and fill up the detention centres using tech they no doubt developed, detaining Mexicans at the border and Palestinians in Palestine. Note too, Israel has a long history of using Palestinians for medical experiments. Note too, their advances in tracking and profiling populations always comes in advance of a genocide. It could well be 9/11 Part 2. Certainly everything is in place. The only way for us out of this is a peaceful velvet revolution, everyone standing as one to evict the ruling regime through peaceful demonstrations and sheer democratic will of the people, to install a direct democracy where communities propose and vote their own policies, and if a tiebreaker is needed, give sovereignty to indigenous groups to protect the land and environment from exploitation. Power without privilege. If you don't like or agree with that idea, you're going to have to show me something better, because there really isn't. Direct democracy is true democracy, where no one is too big to fail and representatives cannot be bought and blackmailed. It is the only way forward. It is the only answer. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you again. No.